Hello, hello, hello. We are going to get started with Chapter 7, Lesson 3. We're going to be factoring trinomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c. And b and c, those just are like numbers. So it's just going to be something like this, for instance. Okay, where b and c are just a number, okay? The key thing about this section is recognizing that this x squared is just x squared, okay? In the next section, you'll be dealing with something like this, where there'll be a number in front of the x squared, but that's gonna be 7, 4. When we deal with something like this where there's a number in front of the x squared. And it's just, you know, slightly a little bit more complicated, but that's this section. So the main thing about this is we're going to be looking at trinomials, and there is a 1 in front of the x squared. However, we don't write a 1 in front of it. It's just x squared, all right? So that's the big 7-3 thing to look out. Trinomials with just a 1 in front of the x squared, which isn't written. So the objective for today is to factor quadratic trinomials of the form x squared plus bx plus c, and just know that in front of there is a 1. Okay, and that's really super important to recognize. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So in Chapter 7, you learned how to multiply two binomials using the distributive property or the FOIL method. Okay, this here is a typo. This is supposed to say in chapter, that's why I love correction tape, because it just corrects everything. This is supposed to say in Chapter 6, right? You learned how to multiply two binomials. So, you know, something like x plus 3, you know, x plus 4, right? And we use the FOIL method. We also talked about doing the distributive property twice, right? Here and then here. But I think it's really important to think about it as the FOIL for this. This is the first, right? X times x is x squared. This is the outside, right? X times 4 is a positive 4x. And then we go to the inside here. 3 times x is just 3x. And then the last one is here. 3 times 4, which is 12. Okay, so do you remember that? That's what you guys learned in Chapter 6. 4x plus 3x, that's 7x plus 12. Boom, shakalaka. There we have it. All right. So in Chapter 6, you learn how to multiply two binomials. This is a binomial, this is a binomial. We're multiplying them using the distributive property or the FOIL method. So the distributive property twice or the FOIL method. In this lesson, you will learn how to factor a trinomial into binomials. So in this lesson, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be given this, and we're going to have to do the reverse and end up with this. Okay, so what I like to call this is the reverse FOIL method. Okay, so that's what we're going to be learning is the reverse FOIL method. Okay, because we already learned how to get here, and we go this way. Now we're going to here, and we're going to go backwards. Okay, so in order to go backwards, we really have to understand FOIL. First, outside, inside, last, okay? Yeah, and really notice how this middle term, right? So this term, that was from the first. This term was from the last, but this 7x, you see how it's the 4x plus the 3x? That's, how do we get the 4x? Well, that's the outside. I'm just gonna write O. And the 3x is the inside. And then those two get added together for this one. So this is our first, this is our last, okay, FOIL. Okay, so let's talk about the reverse FOIL method, okay? So here's a different problem, and it's just really, really important to understand FOIL, okay? So if we go, we have this, right? We did this in Chapter 6. X times x, that's our first. That's our x squared. And then what do we do? The outside here, that's our 5x. That's our O. And then we go here, which is the inside, right? That's our I. And then here is our last, which is our 10. So F-O-I-L. Then what happens? You combine the outside and the inside to get 7x. But this is still our first, and this is still our last. And that's really, really important to look at and see what's happening. So we're going to be given this, right? And we're gonna have to go backwards. Okay, so what I know, I'm gonna change up my color, is whenever you have a trinomial, so you wanna see that it's a trinomial, right? So we notice it's a trinomial, 1, 2, 3. Trinomial, we got an x squared x and a number, okay? So when I see something like this, the other thing I notice is that there's a 1 in front of that, okay? So when I see that it's just x squared, I know that this is my first term, and my first term, right, this is my f, and my first term is gonna be here and here, right? Because that's what happened. I went x times x and got my x squared, right? So x squared is actually really, really easy because I just know that it's going to be x and x. So I'm going backwards, right? I'm working backwards. Okay, so that's easy. Just put the x and the x. Then let's look at the last, okay? And when you look at this, what you need to do is you need to think about, there's a couple things, okay? There's actually two things to think about on the last term. So with the last term, okay, the first thing to think about are the factors of 10. Okay, so what are the factors of 10? So I like to start with, just 1 and 10, right? We did this before with one of the previous lessons in this chapter. So 1 and 10, and then 2 and 5, and then it's not divisible by 3 or 4, and then that's it, right? Remember, the factors are like far, and as you break them down, they get closer and closer. And then the only numbers between 2 and 5 would be 3 and 4, and they're not factors of 10. Okay, so this is the cool thing. Okay, so you find the factors of 10, and then what this tells you, this is a plus sign. This is telling you that you need to add the factors of 10. If you add the factors of 10 to get 7. So it's like a little puzzle, okay? You look at the last, this is the last term. This tells you how to find the factors of 10. This plus sign, it really means two things. But the first thing we're going to talk about is out of the factors of 10, you're going to add those two factors together to get 7. And see, that's what's happening here, right? The O and the I, the outside and the inside, if we're going reverse, you're adding those together, right, to get 7. That's what this 7x is made up of. It's made up of adding two of the factors of 10 to get 7. So we start here. We see 10. We're like, okay, we got to do the factors. 1, 10, 2, 5. Okay, cool. Then I see this plus. This means of the factors I'm adding to get 7. So which of these factors do I add to get 7? Well, 1 plus 10 would be 11, right? So it's not going to be that one. And then 2 plus 5 is 7, so it's going to be this one. Okay, so I just put that in here, 2 and 5. Okay, so the second thing we have to look at is the signs. Okay, so we know that this positive sign means we're going to add the factors of 10 to get 7. So we know it's going to be 2 and 5, right? But the other thing that tells us, well, when we multiply to get a last, right, what are we doing? Okay, we have to really understand what we're doing. When we have first, outside, inside, last. Okay, so I'm trying to pay attention to this last bit. Okay, this last bit, this one right here, which is my last, what is happening? We're going plus 2, a positive 2 times a positive 5. All right, and that's how we get a positive 10. So you are multiplying two numbers together to get a positive 10. So this is a positive, right? It's a positive sign. So what are the only two options of getting a positive number if you multiply, right? You can only, the first option would be, I'm going to call it option A, would be to multiply a positive times a positive, right? Because a positive times a positive is going to give you a positive number, right? Which is what we need. We need a positive 10. What's the other option, though? How else could you get a positive number? Well, what if you multiply a negative times a negative? Does that give you, so a positive times a positive gives you a positive, right? And a negative times a negative gives you a positive, right? So these are really your two options. And how you know whether it's this one or this one is dependent on this. So this is a positive 7. So what we know is both the signs have to be the same. The sign here and the sign here, I mean, we know what it is, right? Because it's right here. But they either both have to be positive or they both have to be negative. But let's see what happens. So let's look at it when they're both positive. They're both negative, right? So if they're both negative, right, we're going to get that x times x, which is going to give us the x squared, right? And then we're going to do our outside, which is x times a negative 5x, which gives us a negative 5x. So notice that, right? This is my first term. This is my outside. Okay, it's now giving me a negative 5x. And then my inside is going to be negative 2 times x, which is going to give me a negative 2x, right? Ooh, there's my inside, and now it's negative. And then my negative 2 times negative 5 is going to give me that positive 10. So notice I have almost everything I need, right? I have the x squared, which is the same here, right? And I have the positive 10, which is the same thing here. But what happens when I combine the outside and the inside? I end up with a negative 7x. Do you guys see that? And I need a positive 7x. So what we can take from this is we know when there's this positive, we're adding the factors of 10 to get this middle number, right? But if we add two positive numbers, we're going to get a positive number here. If we add two negative numbers, then that's going to make this number negative, which is negative 7. Well, we don't need that, right? We need this middle number to be positive. So what happens when we make it positive? Let's see. So we go x times x, which is x squared, right? That's my first. X times a positive 5, which is going to give me a positive 5x. And then we do the inside, a positive 2 times x, which is going to give me that positive inside term. And then a positive times a positive 2 times 5, which is going to give me my 10. Okay? So now I got my x squared, which is the same. I got my 10, which is the same. And now I have 5x plus 2x, which is the positive 7x, which is what I need. And now I have all three terms, which are the same. Okay? Do you guys see that? All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and look at a different example. Okay? And this might be something where, you know, we look at notes and we're doing the videos and we think, okay, we're going to watch this video, we're going to do the notes, and then we're just going to start. But this might be something, this is new. This is new information for you guys. You might want to just stop and rewind and then just watch this explanation again. This is something where it just takes time to sink in. If you don't understand it right now, that is okay. There's a lot of people that don't understand it right now. But what's going to happen is we're going to keep practicing and practicing and practicing, and then at some point, it's just going to click. Okay, and then you're going to be able to do this, and you're going to be able to do it really, really quick, okay? So please have faith in that. Trust me on that. But there's going to be a process, and the process is going to take a different amount of time for each person, all right? It just is what it is. But just as if this is very confusing, you might want to stop, totally rewind to when I start talking about the reverse FOIL method, and just listen to it again, okay? Because there's a lot of information. There is a strategy. We're using a lot of number sense, like as far as how you get a positive number. You get a positive number by multiplying two positive numbers or multiplying two negative numbers. That's the only way you get a positive number, okay? But with that said, we're going to go ahead and do another example together. So we're going to factor the trinomial and then check our answer. Okay, so we have a trinomial, 1, 2, 3 terms. It's the x squared, x, and a number. Okay, perfect. I also noticed that there's a 1 in front, so this is great. Okay, so I'm going to do that reverse FOIL method. Okay, what I know is I know that this is my first term. I know that this is my last term, and I know that this term is from a combination of the outside and the inside. Okay, this plus tells me that I'm going to be adding the outside and the inside together. Okay, so first what I'm going to do this first term. It's x squared, so that's super easy. I know that I'm just going, I got my little binomial things here. I have an x and I have an x. First, x times x is x squared. Boom, that one is done. Okay, now I'm going to shift to my last term. And what my last term tells me is I look here, and this tells me I'm going to be adding the factors of 12 to get 7. Okay, so I need to list all of the factors of 12, and I need to figure out of the factors of 12, which of the factors of 12 add up to being 7. So I just like to go over here to the side, and I'm going to make the 12 like this, and then I list all the factors. So 1 times 12, 2 times 6, what's another one? So they're far apart, they're getting closer. 3, yes, 3 and 4, and now they're like close, so I know that I'm done. So I'm going to look at these, and I'm going to say, okay, which of these add to 7? So 1 plus 12 would be 13, not it. 2 plus 6 is 8, not it. 3 plus 4 is 7. Boom! Okay, so we know that that is it, right? So I know it's going to be a 3 and a 4 here. 3 times 4 is 12, right? Okay, now I just need to figure out my signs. Now I know that to get a positive number, I only have 2 options. The first is multiplying a positive times a positive, right? That's going to give me a positive number. And then the second is going to be multiplying a negative times a negative number, right? And that's going to give me a positive number. But what I have to take into consideration is with both of these is that I am multiplying these two, right, to get a positive 12. Okay, so this is going to be multiplying, right? I'm multiplying here, I'm multiplying here. But these kind of have like a double duty, right? Because this is the last, but it's also to get this middle number. It's a combination of the outside and the inside to get this middle number. And that's how I get the 7, but I'm also going to have to be adding. So if they're both positive, it also means I'm going to be adding a positive, and a positive plus a positive is going to give me a positive number. And this is my middle term, right? So I want to see, is this positive? Or if I add a negative plus a negative, that's going to give me a negative number for that middle term here. Okay, so like if we had, so look here. So to put this in the problem, so we're going to multiply 3 times 4, right? 3 times 4 is going to give me 12, right? So that's my last term. That's how I get 12. But I'm also going to be going, I have to go plus 3 plus 4. So 3 plus 4, which is going to give me a 7. Well, it's going to be 3x plus 4x is going to give me that 7x, right? Which is my outside, this is my middle term. Now, if I went, this is the other option. If I went negative 3 times negative 4, that would give me a positive 12, which is this, right? But then I'd have to add them. So negative 3 plus negative 4, except it would be x, is going to give me a negative 7x, and I need a positive 7x, so I know that this is not going to be my option of making these negative. I know that they both have to be positive because that's the only way I can go 3 times 4 is a positive 12, and I can also, with my outside, go 4x, which is a positive 4x, plus my positive 3x to get this positive number there, okay? So I know that both of my signs have to be positive, okay? So that's it. This is basically my answer. Now I'm just going to check it, right? So x times x, that's my x squared. X times 4 is a positive 4x, right? This is my first. This is my outside. And then I go inside 3 times x, which is a positive 3x. This is my inside, and then my last is 3 times 4, which is 12. Okay, so you can see here I have my first, that's perfect. I have my last, that's perfect, it's positive. And then lastly, we just go 4x plus 3x, which is my 7x, right? And I have the same exact thing, so I know that I did it all correctly. Okay, so on your homework, you really, after you find your answer, this is my answer, you need to check it, okay? And it's not that hard just to FOIL it really quick. And you're looking to see if you got the same thing here. And if you did, you know you did it right. If there's something that's not right, then you know you did something wrong, okay? So let's go ahead and look at some example problems here, okay? So we're just gonna go over them together, okay? 1A. We have right here. Okay, so x squared plus 15x plus 36. And so we're going to factor this and then check our answer. All right, so what do we know? We know that this is my first. We know this is my last. And I know that this is from adding, right? Because this means add. I'm going to add my outside plus my inside to get 15. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to make my little binomial. X squared is super easy because it's just x and x, right? And then we look at our last. So we have 36. So what we're looking at the factors of 36 that add to 15. Okay? And, okay, so we're going to go 36 here and just write down all the factors. I like to start just with 1 and then go from there and do it in order because sometimes you can miss them. So 1 times 36, that's 1. Then we're going to go 2 times 18 and then 3 times 12 and 4 times 9 and see how they're far apart and they're getting closer together. And then 5, no, and then 6 times 6. Okay, so these are all the factors of 36. And then we're going to figure out which ones add to 15, right? So 1 plus 36 is 37. That's not it. 2 plus 18 is 20. That's not it. 3 plus 12 is 15. Boom! This one's it. So we know that one of these is going to be our outside and one's going to be our inside. It doesn't matter which one at this point. It will in the next lesson, but for right now it doesn't. So we just can put those in, 3 and 12. And then the last thing we need to do is we need to figure out our signs, right? So since this is positive, we know we only have 2 options, right? To get that last, you're going 3 times 12. Well, you can either multiply a positive times a positive to get a positive number, or you can multiply a negative times a negative to get a positive number, but you know that you're still going to have to add those together for the for this middle term with the outside and inside. So you're going to add a positive and a positive number to get a positive number, or a negative number and a negative number will not give you a positive number. It would give you a negative 15x. So we know that because this is positive, the only way we can get a positive number when your only 2 options are a positive and a positive and a negative, the only way you can add and get a positive number is by adding 2 positive numbers. So we know that the signs both have to be positive. So that is our answer And then let's just go ahead and check it. And I just love when I check it because it just kind of like cements everything that I'm doing. So x times x, that's my first, right? That's x squared. And then x times 12, that's 12x. Okay, so this is my first, this is my outside, right? And you can see that's my factor right there, right? And then my inside is 3 times x, which is 3x. And that's my inside. And then my last 3 times 12, which is a positive 36. That's my last. So you can see there's my first, there's my last, and then the outside and the inside, 12 plus 3, you add those together, and right, that's the only way you can get a positive because they're both positive. And we get 15x plus 36. Plus x squared, and you can see this was my first, this was my last, and this was a combination of the outside and the inside. So we got the same thing, so we know that we did it right on our check. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's look at our next one, 1b. Okay, so we're going to factor each trinomial and then check our answer. Okay, so this is my first, right? This is my last, and this is my combination of my outside and my inside, okay? So the first I'm going to do is my first because it's just super easy. X. Okay, and then I'm looking at my last, right? And what do I know? I know that it's 24, and I'm going to have to find the factors of 24 that add to 10, okay? So I'm just going to start with 1 and 24, and then I think I'm going to go to 2 and 12, and then 3 and 8, and then 4 and 6, and then the only other one between those would be 5, and that doesn't go to 24. So boom, we have it. So we know we have all of our factors, right? And we know that we're going to have the factors of 24 add to 10. Okay, so we're going to be adding the factors. Right? So 1 plus 24, that's 25, that's not it. 2 plus 12 is 14, that's not it. 3 plus 8 is 11, that's not it. 4 plus 6, that's 10. Oh, we got it. Okay, so 4 plus 6. So no, one of these is going to be your outside, one's going to be your inside, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to put 4 and 6. So now we have our first, we have our last, now we just need to find the sign. So we know that since this is positive, the only way on our last, we go 4 times 6, right? The only way you can make that a positive 24 is if you multiply a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. That's the only way you can get a positive number, right? But we also have to add the factors together. So we're going to have to add a positive plus a positive. That would give us a positive, but if we add a negative plus a negative, that would give us a negative number, and we need a positive. So we know that it's not going to be negative. Both of the signs are going to be positive, and then boom, there we have it. There's our answer, and we're going to go ahead and check it, okay? So we're going to do our first, x times x, which is x squared. That's our first. And then we're going to do our outside, x times 6, which is 6x, that's our outside. And then our inside, right, 4 times x, which is 4x, that's our inside. And then our last, 4 times 6, which is 24, and that is our last. And you can see x squared, 24. We just have to add those two together, and we get our 10x. And then boom, we have it. That is our answer, and it's the same. We got it. All right. Now we're going to go to check it out, example 1, and I really want to give you a chance to try to do this, okay? Here is my friend, the pause dragon. Remind you to pause your device. Go ahead and figure it out. When you get done, press play, and we'll talk about it together. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, let's see how you did. So this first one, right, this is our first term. This is our last term, and then this is going to be a combination. We're going to add, right? Add our outside and our inside to get 7x. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to start with our first because it's x squared. I know that that is just x times x. Super easy. All right, then we go to our last, right? And this tells me that I'm adding the factors of 12 to get 7. So I'm going to list what the factors of 12 are. So we have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Okay, and we're going to add them, add the factors together to get 7. So 1 plus 12 is 13, 2 plus 6 is 8, hey, 3 plus 4, that's 7. And then we just need to figure out the signs, right? So this is positive, which means the only way we can get on our last term, 3 times 4, is the only way we can get a positive number is by multiplying a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative, but we know that we have to add them together to get this middle, and it's positive. So that means both have to be positive. So if you got that one right, awesome, awesome, but we have to check it. So we have our x times x, which is our x squared. That was our first. And then our outside x times 4, which is 4x. And then our inside 3 times x, which is 3x. And then our last 3 times 4, which is 12. And then that combines to 7x. And it's the same thing. So if you got that right, you did a wonderful job. And I'll see you in a little bit for example 2.